Thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and today we're going to do story. Each week we cover different themes, and so week one is general topics. I always encourage and invite you to give me comments and suggestions about topics you'd like me to cover. Week two is a story. Week three is an interview, and week four, Q&A, questions and answers. We'll be talking about something to think about before you say I do. In the meantime, if you have not already done so, please hit the subscribe button. When you hit that button, a bell will appear. If you click the bell, when I do uploads, you will get notified, as well as give me a like. That always helps the channel. All right. We will be talking today about another one of my stories. If you want to hear about your stories, or you want me to tell stories pertaining to a different topic, I invite you to contact me and let me know. There's an African proverb that's really very true, and it says, and I quote, "Before you get married, keep both eyes open. After you get married, close one." Man, is that so true. Sure wish I had known it before I got married. So I'm going to share what it was like for me to get married. But before I do that, I just wanted to say that I've spoken on marriage quite a few times. And one of the things that I have a passion for, a concern about, a burden, just a little bit of all of that is what are we doing to prepare ourselves for marriage? What are we doing once we've met someone that we're very interested in and it begins to get a little serious? What types of thoughts are we thinking about as we go through the experience? What are we looking for? Are we looking for emotional comfort? Or do we know what are some of the things that we need to really think about, address, explore, and look into before we say I do? Because after you say I do is a bit late on a whole bunch of levels. So I'll just jump right in and share my story and tie it back to that wonderful African proverb. I met my husband and we dated for about 5 years. And I tell you, when I met him, and we were long distance, and so we wrote letters back and forth to each other because he lived in another town. And so we got to know each other best through our letters, more so than the talking on the phone or the in-person visits, because we had to talk from the depths of our heart. You know, what's on your mind and what is expressed can tell another person a lot about who you are. It's what comes out of you that expresses best who you are, where you're at, how you feel about things. And so anyway, we wrote letters, and this was 20 years ago. And even in that time, letter writing wasn't a typical thing, but in our relationship, it was. So we really, I felt, got to know each other on a very intimate level. So by the time he relocated to where I lived, felt like I knew him pretty well. Yet there are nuances for you online daters. There are nuances that are just not going to show up in a long distance relationship. And we didn't really know how to look into those things. Instead, we just paid attention to our feelings and how we cared about each other. We checked in about similar values that we had to make sure that we were in sync and on the same page, on one accord in those areas that we deemed very important. And once we identified that those things were good, I had one eye closed, and I'm sure he did as well. I saw things that were flags, and I would just have to admit to you that I took those red flags and I shoved them under a rug so that I wouldn't have to look at them, because I did my emotional math. And I said, if I add up all the attributes he has and all the things that makes him a wonderful man, and then I look at these other things, I'm going to say the attributes outweigh the red flags. And with that, I went into I do as if I had never seen any of those flags. Needless to say, on the other side of I do, oh boy, did they flare up in a most ugly way. And at that point, it was too late. We'd already said I do. We'd already fallen in love. We had already committed our hearts. And here we were. And I would just have to admit that it took quite a long time for me to walk out that African proverb, because I had one eye open when I was dating, but I had four eyes open once I said I do. And I thought it was important to call a spade at that point. I thought it was necessary and important to pick everything out and talk about it. And he did too. Oh my goodness. We thought we had to unpack everything. We weren't supposed to go to bed mad. We had both agreed upon that. So did we ever stay up late and discuss through the nose things that we felt like needed to be resolved? And it was a long, arduous journey for quite some years. I think, unfortunately, we were in year 9 or 10 before I figured out how important it was to close an eye. Before I figured out how important it was to take that one eye that I had left and actually visualize that same man that I fell in love with, that same man that I made that commitment to, that same man that I was just so enthralled with. And it's really important to encourage our spouses, to build them up, to be their best cheerleader. It's so important to give grace in our relationships, that when people make mistakes or have different approaches and preferences and even habits that are super annoying, that we would have that one eye closed and let it go, let it roll over. This is the time to do the math, the emotional math, to say, you know what? What's more important, being right or being healthy? It took me about 10 years to learn that. So I just wanted to encourage you today. I wanted to put on the minds of those who are single how important it is to pay attention way before you say I do. Hopefully before you get engaged, even while you're getting to that place of love and feeling like you could do this forever. So when you look up and you see your Miss Forever or your Mr. Forever in your heart and through your eyes, make sure you have a light, a camera, and both eyes open to really address those concerns you have, those inadequacies, those shortcomings, those differences, family histories, educational plans, as well as current practices. What is your lifestyle like as far as how you eat and how you take care of your body? Do you stay on top of your health? Do you have good mental health? And when you're struggling in those areas, do you go get help? Do you have a support system? What are you like with friends? Are you an introvert or extrovert? And what are your expectations around entertainment and relationships and social interactions? These are all things that you shouldn't just look over and say, well, when we dated, we did this and we did that and it was fun. No, those are conversations. Those are interactions that you may have with their peripheral support system, because they're not going to tell you everything. Some things they won't see and other things they don't want you to know. And so you have to be smart about looking at all those things that really matter and you believe will matter. And then you need to know this: no matter how much good homework you do and how much you pay attention to the things that may not be okay, just know that life happens and things change and people can change, and their preferences and their self-awareness and all those things that contribute to these agreements that you may or may not have may cause change, and you have to flex. And that's why that one-eye bandit practice is so gonna be helpful. Press the subscribe button, click the bell, and give me a like. Make comments, make topic suggestions. And next week, we're going to do an interview with a couple who did the one-eye thing really well. I just want to say this: you can't have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-year marriages unless you're willing to close an eye afterwards. All right, you take care. Have a great week, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.